When's a cat happy on a hot tin roof? When the pavements are scorching in Saudi Arabia's extreme summers. The felines of Riyadh rest on cars, while the city's residents prefer the indoors and the comfort of air conditioning. As the temperature rises, so does the demand for electricity. And that's a challenge, even for the country that owns the world's biggest oil company. So Saudi Arabia's industrial investment company Dusur is buying more gas turbines from General Electric to shift its power plants off oil.
This project will play a key role in achieving Saudi Arabia's Economic Vision 2030. Through this and other projects, Dusur will contribute to the process of economic diversification in the kingdom, especially in the industrial sector.
Saudi Aramco is also looking for cheaper fuels to power the country's cities. The state-owned oil company is in talks to acquire a stake in the Houston-based natural gas producer, Tellurian. Aramco is trying to expand its footprint in the US through its subsidiary Motiva and also in East Africa, Asia and the Mediterranean. It's awarded contracts worth nearly $5 billion to boost gas production within the kingdom, and Saudi Energy Minister Khalid Al-Falih says Riyadh may also turn to Moscow for supplies.
I think we are in an interesting moment to talk about the potential to buy liquefied natural gas from the Russian Arctic.
To many, this announcement is an admission of the kingdom's inability to find new large reserves. But securing gas supplies and stakes in companies that produce it can drastically lower Saudi Arabia's energy bill and let it export even more oil. Mobin Nasir, TRT World.
Let's get more on this now with Stephen Shork. He's an energy industry consultant and the editor of the Shork Report. He's in Villanova in Pennsylvania. Great to have you with us. Stephen, let's start with why Saudi Arabia is doing this. It's not short on energy, so why the push into natural gas?
What we're seeing with Aramco is essentially what we've been seeing over the last 5 years with the major oil-producing companies, the private companies, and that is to say an admission that natural gas is in the process of overtaking crude oil as the global hydrocarbon economy main feedstock. So that is to say that with Aramco at this point, they're simply making the investment, albeit outside of their borders, in an industry where the major oil companies have been shifting, like I said, over the past 5 years. Right. Now, it absolutely makes sense, Aramco, that is to say, with regard to their IPO. There are significant investments here in the United States with the new administration in the petrochemical industry, which natural gas is a major feedstock. And Saudi Arabia has already made significant investments in the growth of its own petrochemical companies. So these industries need natural gas as their main feedstock. We also have to keep in mind, with regard to power generation, Saudi Arabia consumes tens of millions of barrels of crude oil to fire up their power stations. So, for instance, in the summer, where the global demand for crude oil peaks, Saudi Arabia is using a lot of crude oil to sate its own population's cooling demand. So for every 1 barrel of crude oil that Saudi Arabia burns, that's 1 barrel of crude oil it's not earning export income on. So the more barrels they can sell abroad and earn the export income and instead substitute natural gas for their power needs is a win-win for the country.
Do you think it must be quite frustrating for Saudi Arabia because they sit right on the edge of some of the world's biggest natural gas resources, except those resources are controlled by Qatar, who is now an enemy of Saudi Arabia, and Iran, which is an even bigger enemy of Saudi Arabia?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think anyone looking at the energy markets going into 2018, the disconnect between both sides, the two major players inside of OPEC, and I call it the rift between the Sunni side of OPEC and the Shia side of OPEC. And this is probably the largest chasm from a geopolitical standpoint within the cartel that we've ever seen. So going forward, as you said, on one side you have Iran and Qatar, and Saudi on the other side. So if we are going to see any sort of significant disruption, it will likely occur here, which would be, as they say, a black swan event.
Stephen, very quickly, Saudi Arabia is also looking to get into the shale oil industry in the US. Very briefly, in about 30 seconds, what's its strategic goal over there?
Once again, the United States is at the forefront. Shale growth and production has been ramped up over the past 10 years. So there's an economies of scale that cannot be replicated around the globe. So there's a significant amount of professional and technical engineering expertise that has been perfected here in North America. So this is something Saudi would want to buy into.
Okay, Stephen Shork of the Shork Report, thank you very much indeed.